The distress signal had been playing for 17 days. It repeated every hour, sent out across the galaxy to anyone who would listen. The message was simple. The Volthani people were going to die, and they needed help. The Volthani homeworld was a beautiful place. It had green forests and blue oceans. The people there were peaceful. They had never started a war. They spent their time making art and music and studying the stars. Their skin was light blue, and they were tall and thin. They were not fighters. They were dreamers. But now their dreams were ending. A cluster of asteroids was coming toward their planet. 12 massive rocks, each one big enough to destroy entire continents. The Volthani scientists had done the math many times. In 16 days, the first asteroid would hit. Within 3 days after that, all 12 would strike. The impacts would kill everyone. Every man, woman, and child on the planet would die. The Volthani had tried everything they could think of. They sent ships to push the asteroids away, but their engines were too weak. They tried to break the rocks apart with explosives, but the asteroids were too big. Nothing worked out, so they sent out the distress call. The message went to every spacefaring civilization in the known galaxy. The Volthani begged for help. They offered everything they had. Their art, their technology, their knowledge. They promised to serve whoever saved them. They would do anything. The Corellian Senate was the first to respond. The Corellians were an old and powerful race. They had hundreds of warships and advanced technology. Surely they would help. But the Corellians said no. The path to the Volthani homeworld went through the Morrow Expanse. This was a region of space filled with radiation storms and gravity wells. Ships that went in rarely came out. The Corellians calculated the risks and decided it was too dangerous. They sent their regrets and wished the Volthani well. The Dreth Collective was next. The Dreth were known throughout the galaxy for their intelligence. They were logical beings who made all decisions based on numbers and probability. They studied the situation for 2 days. Then they refused. Their computers said the chance of success was less than 4%. The Dreth did not waste resources on missions that were almost certain to fail. They expressed sympathy and disconnected the communication channel. The Amari Consortium did not even reply. They received the message, read it, and deleted it. The Volthani had nothing the Amari wanted. Helping them would cost money and ships and lives. The consortium saw no profit in saving a dying world. One by one, every advanced civilization in the galaxy turned away. The math was clear. The mission was suicide. No sensible species would risk their own people for strangers on a doomed planet. High Chancellor Varys stood in his office and watched the rejection messages pile up. He was old, even by Volthani standards. His blue skin had faded to gray in places. He had led his people for 40 years. Now he would lead them to their deaths. His assistant, a young female named Sella, entered the room. Her eyes were wet with tears she was trying to hide. The last response came in. She said, "The Partheni Empire has declined. They say they cannot spare the ships." Varys nodded slowly. He had expected this. How many civilizations did we contact? 47. And how many said yes? Sella's voice broke. None. Varys turned to look out his window. Below him, the capital city continued its daily life. People walked through the streets. Children played in the parks. They did not know yet that no one was coming to save them. He would have to tell them soon. "There is one more message going out," Sella said quietly. It reached a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. A young species. They only discovered space travel 200 years ago. Who are they? They call themselves humans. They come from a planet called Earth. Varys had never heard of them. What do we know about these humans? Sella pulled up the data on her tablet. Not much. They are from a death world. High gravity, extreme weather, dangerous wildlife. Their planet tries to kill them in 100 different ways. Deathworlders. Varys said the word with a mix of fear and wonder. Deathworlds were rare. Most intelligent life evolved on peaceful planets with stable climates. The idea that a species could survive and thrive on a hostile world was almost unbelievable. Should I cancel the message? Sela asked. They are so young and so far away. They probably cannot help even if they wanted to. Varys thought about it. Then he shook his head. Let it send. At this point, we have nothing to lose. The message crossed the galaxy at faster than light speed. It passed through relay stations and communication networks. It traveled for 3 days before reaching the edge of human space. A listening station on Mars picked it up first. The officer on duty, a young man named Chris Taylor, almost deleted it as spam. They got a lot of junk messages from deep space. Scams, mostly. But something made him look closer, when he read the translation. His coffee cup slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. 20 minutes later. The message reached Earth. Commander Lisa Morgan was eating dinner with her family when her communicator buzzed. She was on leave for the first time in 8 months. Her daughter was telling her about school. Her husband was laughing at a joke. It was a perfect evening. Then she read the message. Lisa set down her fork. Her husband saw the look on her face and stopped laughing. What is it? He asked. I have to go, Lisa said. She stood and kissed her daughter on the forehead. I might be gone for a while. How long? Lisa did not answer. She was already walking out the door. 3 hours later, she stood in the briefing room at United Earth Space Command headquarters. Around her sat the best officers in the fleet. Captain Daniel Price, commander of the heavy cruiser Endeavour. Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres, the finest tactical officer in the service. Chief Engineer Kevin Walsh, a man who could fix anything with enough time and determination. Navigation Officer Eric Palmer, who could fly through a needle if you asked him to. Admiral Patricia Cole stood at the front of the room. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served in space for 40 years. She had seen things that would break most people. But even she looked troubled tonight. You have all read the message, the Admiral said. 3 billion Velthani will die in 16 days unless someone helps them. Every other species in the galaxy has refused. The mission is considered impossible. She paused and looked around the room. I am asking for volunteers. Lisa raised her hand immediately. She did not need to think about it. She did not need to calculate the odds or weigh the risks. 3 billion people were going to die. That was all she needed to know. Daniel raised his hand next. Then Amy, then Kevin and Eric. One by one, every officer in the room volunteered. Admiral Cole smiled, but there was sadness in it. I expected nothing less. The Endeavour will depart in 48 hours. We do not have time to plan. We do not have time to prepare. We only have time to act. Lisa looked at her fellow officers. These were humans. They had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They had crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars. And now the stars were calling. We will bring them home, Lisa said quietly. Or we will die trying. No one disagreed. The Endeavour launched 47 hours after the meeting. She was a heavy cruiser, one of the largest ships in the human fleet. Her hull was painted dark gray, and her engines glowed blue in the darkness of space. She carried weapons, supplies, and equipment for almost any situation. But her most important cargo was her crew. 842 people had volunteered for the mission. Not a single person had been ordered to go. When word spread through the fleet that a rescue mission was being assembled, the applications had crashed the computer system. Thousands wanted to help, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, people who had never met the Velthani and never would. They just knew that someone needed help, and they wanted to give it. Commander Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge as the ship pulled away from Earth. She watched her homeworld grow smaller in the view screen. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. It was beautiful. She wondered if she would ever see it again. Course plotted, Eric Palmer said from the navigation station. His voice was calm but focused. The Morrow Expanse is directly ahead. We will reach the edge in 6 hours. Lisa nodded. What do we know about this place? Amy Torres pulled up the data on the main screen. The Morrow Expanse was a dark region of space, about 3 light years across. On the map, it looked like a bruise on the galaxy. Nothing good lived there. Radiation storms, Amy read from the report. The kind that can fry a ship's systems in minutes. Gravitational anomalies that can tear a hull apart. Electromagnetic interference that will blind our sensors. She looked at Lisa. The Corellians call it the graveyard of ships. They say no one who enters ever comes out. The Corellians have never met humans, Daniel said with a small smile. Kevin Walsh laughed from the engineering station. He was a big man with thick arms and grease permanently stained under his fingernails. He had spent 30 years fixing ships that everyone else said could not be fixed. I have seen worse. Remember the Saturn mission? The whole engine room was on fire, and we still made it home. That was different, Amy pointed out. That was an accident. This is flying into danger on purpose. Same result, Kevin shrugged. We survive and tell stories about it later. Lisa appreciated their confidence. She needed it. Because the truth was, she was scared. Not for herself. She had accepted that she might die the moment she raised her hand in that briefing room. She was scared for her crew. These people trusted her. They had followed her into the unknown because they believed in the mission. If she got them killed, their deaths would be on her hands. But there was no turning back now. The first 6 hours passed quickly. The crew ran tests on every system. They checked the shields, the weapons, the life support. They made sure the medical bay was stocked. They said prayers and wrote letters and tried not to think about what was coming. Then they reached the Morrow Expanse. Lisa saw it on the view screen before the sensors picked it up. The stars ahead seemed to disappear, swallowed by darkness. Lightning flashed in the void, green and purple and colors that had no name. It was like looking into the mouth of a monster. First storm approaching, Eric announced. His voice was steady, but his hands were tight on the controls. Contact in 12 minutes. All hands, brace for impact, Lisa said into the ship-wide communicator. This is going to be rough. Trust your training. Trust each other. We will get through this. The storm hit them like a fist. The ship shook so hard that Lisa was thrown from her chair. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered and died. Sparks flew from consoles across the bridge. She heard people shouting, metal groaning, systems failing. Shields at 60%, Amy called out. No, 50, 40. We are losing them. Reroute power from the weapons, Lisa ordered. She pulled herself back into her chair and gripped the armrests. Everything we have goes to shields. Kevin was already working. His fingers flew across his console, redirecting power flows and bypassing damaged circuits. The main generator is overheating. I need to vent the plasma or we will lose the whole system. Do it. A blast of superheated gas shot from the side of the ship. For a moment, the lights went completely dark. Then the backup systems kicked in, and the bridge glowed red with emergency lighting. The storm raged for 4 hours. 4 hours of constant shaking. 4 hours of systems failing and being jury-rigged back to life. 4 hours of crew members being thrown around, bones breaking, blood spilling. In the medical bay, Dr. Samantha Green worked without stopping. She set broken arms and treated burns and kept people alive through sheer determination. When the storm finally passed, the Endeavor was barely holding together. Lisa looked around the bridge. Everyone was still at their stations. Eric's forehead was bleeding from a cut, but he had not moved from navigation. Amy was bruised all over, but still reading sensor data. Kevin had burns on his hands from working with overheated equipment. Damage report, Lisa said. Kevin pulled up the information. We lost a third of our external sensors. 2 decks have radiation leaks. The forward shields are at 20%. 6 crew members are in critical condition in medical. He paused and let out a long breath. But we are still flying. Next storm? Lisa asked Eric. 12 hours. Category 4 this time. Smaller than the first one. Category 4? Daniel asked. The galactic scale only goes to 5. Eric managed a weak smile. I made my own scale. The first one was a 7. Despite everything, Lisa felt a spark of pride. They had survived something that everyone said was impossible. The Corellians would never have made it through that storm. The Dreth would have turned back at the first sign of trouble. But humans pushed forward. That was what they did. Over the next 5 days, the Endeavor fought its way through the Morrow Expanse. They faced 6 more storms. Each one was different. Each one found new ways to try to kill them. The second storm knocked out their communications for 8 hours. The third one fried the navigation computer, and Eric had to calculate their course by hand. The fourth one was so intense that they had to shut down all non-essential systems and ride it out in darkness. Through it all, the crew held together. Lisa watched them work and felt something she had not expected. Hope. These people were not giving up. When systems failed, they fixed them. When someone got hurt, others stepped in to cover their duties. When the food processors broke, they ate cold rations without complaint. On the 4th day, she walked through the ship to check on everyone. In engineering, she found Kevin teaching a group of young technicians how to repair damaged wiring. In the medical bay, Dr. Green was still on her feet, despite not sleeping for 40 hours. In the cargo bay, crew members had set up a small worship space where people of all faiths could pray. Lisa stopped there and listened to a young woman singing a hymn. Her voice was soft but clear. The words spoke of hope in dark times and light after the storm. When the song ended, Lisa walked over. That was beautiful. The woman looked embarrassed. Thank you, Commander. I hope I was not bothering anyone. Not at all. We need more of that. Lisa sat down beside her. What is your name? Maria Santos. I work in the science division. Why did you volunteer for this mission, Maria? Maria thought about it for a moment. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days on Earth, before we went to space. She said people used to look up at the stars and dream about what was out there. She said we went to space not to find aliens or resources or power. We went because we wanted to help, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Maria looked at Lisa with steady eyes. Someone out there needs help. That is enough for me. Lisa nodded slowly. That was enough for her too. On the 6th day, they finally emerged from the Morrow Expanse. The darkness fell away, and suddenly, the view screen was filled with stars. Bright, beautiful stars shining in the clear space ahead. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief. And then they saw it. The Volthani homeworld hung before them like a jewel. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling over the surface. It looked so much like Earth that several crew members started crying. But beyond the planet, visible even without sensors, was the danger. 12 asteroids moved through space in a loose cluster. They were huge, each one the size of a small moon. They tumbled slowly as they traveled, and they were getting closer every second. In 9 days, they would reach the planet. In 9 days, everything beautiful about that world would be destroyed. Lisa opened a communication channel. Velthani homeworld. This is Commander Lisa Morgan of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We received your distress call. She paused and looked at the view screen. At the planet. At the asteroids. At the impossible task ahead. We are here to help. The response came after 10 seconds of silence. A voice, trembling with disbelief. You came. After everyone else refused, you came. Lisa smiled. It is what we do. The transport shuttle landed in the main plaza of the Velthani capital city. Lisa stepped out first, followed by Daniel, Amy, Kevin, and Eric. They wore their formal uniforms, dark blue with silver trim. They wanted to make a good impression. Thousands of Velthani had gathered to see them. Lisa had studied pictures of the Velthani during the journey, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall, almost 2 meters on average, with thin bodies and long limbs. Their skin ranged from light blue to deep purple. Their eyes were large and golden, and they blinked slowly as they watched the humans approach. The crowd was silent. No one moved. They just stared at these strange beings from a distant world. Then a small child broke away from his mother and ran toward Lisa. He stopped right in front of her and looked up with wide, curious eyes. Are you really from a death world? He asked. Lisa knelt down to his level. Yes, a planet called Earth. Is it scary there? Lisa thought about Earth, about the hurricanes and earthquakes, about the wolves and sharks and countless other predators, about the diseases and droughts and freezing winters. Then she thought about the sunsets over the ocean, the laughter of children in playgrounds, the smell of rain on a summer afternoon. Sometimes, she said honestly, but it is also beautiful, just like your world. The child smiled and ran back to his mother. The crowd seemed to relax. These strange creatures were not so frightening after all. High Chancellor Varys stepped forward. He was old, his blue skin faded to gray, but he walked with dignity. Behind him stood his advisors and generals, all looking at the humans with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Commander Morgan, Varys said, his voice amplified by a small device at his throat. On behalf of all Velthani, I thank you for answering our call. You have done what no one else would do. Lisa shook his hand in the human way. His grip was gentle, almost fragile. We are here to help, High Chancellor, but we need to understand the situation fully before we can make a plan. Varys nodded and led them to the government building. It was a beautiful structure made of white stone and colored glass. Inside, Velthani scientists had gathered all the information they had about the asteroid cluster. The conference room was large and circular. Holographic displays showed the 12 asteroids in perfect detail. They rotated slowly, revealing craters and ridges and the scars of ancient collisions. Each one was labeled with its size, mass, and trajectory. The largest is designated Alpha, a Velthani scientist named Talvin explained. He was younger than Varys, with dark purple skin and quick movements. It is approximately 400 kilometers in diameter. When it hits, the impact will be equivalent to 1 billion nuclear weapons. Kevin whistled low. That is big. The other 11 range from 100 to 300 kilometers. Talvin continued. Together, they will cause extinction-level devastation. No life on the surface will survive. What have you tried so far? Amy asked. Talvin brought up more displays. They showed Velthani ships approaching the asteroids, firing engines, launching explosives. Every attempt had failed. Our gravitational tethers could not affect masses this large. Our explosives barely scratched the surface. We considered nuclear options, but we do not have weapons powerful enough. His voice dropped. We have accepted that we cannot save ourselves. That is why we called for help. Lisa studied the holographic asteroids. 12 problems. 9 days. One ship. The math did not work. What if we do not try to save everyone? She said quietly. The room went silent. Every Velthani stared at her in shock. Explain, Varys said carefully. Lisa walked to the display and began manipulating the images. She sorted the asteroids by their trajectories, separating them into groups. 4 of these asteroids will hit populated areas directly. Your major cities, your agricultural centers, your industrial zones. These impacts will kill billions and destroy your civilization. She pointed to the other 8. But these will hit oceans and empty regions. Still devastating. Still deadly. But survivable. Talvin shook his head. The tsunamis alone will kill hundreds of millions. The dust clouds will block the sun for years. Crops will fail. Use will fail. Temperatures will drop. Yes, Lisa agreed. It will be hard. Harder than anything your people have ever faced. But you will survive. Your species will continue. Varys sat down heavily. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked at Lisa with ancient, tired eyes. You are asking us to sacrifice part of our world to save the rest. I am asking you to live, Lisa said firmly. The alternative is extinction. Everyone dies. Every child, every elder, every dream your people ever had. Gone forever. She leaned forward. This way, you have a future. A painful future, yes. But a future. The Velthani leaders looked at each other. They had spent weeks preparing to die. The idea that they might live, even in a damaged world, was almost too much to process. How would you stop the 4 main asteroids? Talvin asked. Lisa turned to Kevin. Tell them. Kevin stood and walked to the display. Your ships tried to push the asteroids with gravitational tethers. That is a delicate approach. Elegant. Clean. He grinned. Humans do not do elegant. We do brute force. He pulled up a schematic of the Endeavor. Our ship has 4 main engines. Each one produces enough thrust to move a small moon. If we modify them, reinforce the hull, and position ourselves correctly, we can physically push the asteroids off course. Talvin looked confused. You would ram the asteroids? With your ship? More like nudge them very hard, Kevin said. We hit them at the right angle, fire our engines at full power, and change their trajectory just enough to miss the populated areas. That sounds dangerous. It is extremely dangerous, Amy confirmed. The impacts could damage our hull. The strain on our engines could cause them to fail. And we would need to hit all 4 asteroids within a very tight window. What are the odds of success? Varys asked. Eric pulled out a tablet and showed them his calculations. If everything goes perfectly, about 60%. If we hit problems, which we will, closer to 30. 30%, Varys repeated. The Dreth refused because their odds were less than 4%. You are willing to try with 30. Lisa smiled. The Dreth think 30% is bad odds. Humans think 30% is worth trying. Varys was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question Lisa had been waiting for. If you use your engines this way, will you have enough power to return home? The silence stretched out. Lisa felt the weight of every eye in the room on her. No, she said simply. We will not. The Velthani erupted in confused murmurs. Talvin stepped forward with wide eyes. You would strand yourselves here? You would give up your ability to go home for us? Lisa looked at her officers. Daniel stood straight and proud. Amy had her arms crossed, but nodded slightly. Kevin was already thinking about the engineering challenges. Eric was running more numbers on his tablet. When we left Earth, Lisa said, we knew this might be a one-way trip. Every person on that ship volunteered anyway. We did not come here to save you and then go home to celebrate. We came here to save you, whatever it takes. Varys stood slowly. His eyes were wet. In all my years of dealing with other species, he said, I have never encountered beings like you. Every civilization we contacted calculated the costs and benefits. They measured our value against their risk, and they found us wanting. He walked toward Lisa and took her hands in his. But you did not calculate. You did not measure. You simply came. Because we needed help. Lisa felt her own eyes stinging. That is who we are, High Chancellor. We are not perfect. We have done terrible things in our history. Wars and cruelty and destruction. But we have also done this. We have reached out across the stars to help strangers we have never met. Because that is also who we are. Varys bowed his head in a gesture of deep respect. Then we accept your help, Commander Morgan. And whatever happens, we will never forget what you have done. Kevin clapped his hands together. Good. Now let us get to work. We have 9 days to save a world, and I need to take apart half my ship to do it. The next hours were a blur of activity. Human engineers and Velthani scientists worked side by side, sharing knowledge and solving problems. The Endeavor was brought into orbit where modifications could begin. On the surface, plans were made for evacuations and shelters. Lisa stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city as the sun set. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. It was beautiful in a way that made her heart ache. Varys joined her there. I have been studying your species, he said. Your history is violent. Wars, weapons, destruction. You have nearly destroyed yourselves many times. Yes, Lisa admitted. We are not proud of everything we have done. And yet you are here, sacrificing everything for people you do not know. Varys turned to look at her. How do you explain this contradiction? Lisa thought about it for a long time. We are both things, she finally said. The darkness and the light. The destruction and the salvation. We choose which one to be every day. She looked at the sunset. Today, we chose the light. Varys nodded slowly. Perhaps, he said, you are exactly what the galaxy needs. The next 8 days were the longest of Lisa's life. Kevin and his engineering team worked around the clock. They tore apart sections of the Endeavor that had been built to last decades. They ripped out walls and rewired systems. They welded thick metal plates to the front of the ship to protect the hull from asteroid impacts. They modified the engines to produce more thrust than they were ever designed to handle. The work was exhausting. Engineers collapsed at their stations and had to be carried to their beds. They slept for a few hours and then went right back to work. There was no time to rest, no time to doubt. Every hour counted. On the surface, Daniel led teams of humans in Velthani to prepare for the impacts they could not prevent. 8 asteroids would still hit the planet. The tsunamis alone would reshape coastlines. The dust clouds would darken the sky for years. They built shelters deep underground. They moved millions of people away from the coasts. They stockpiled food and water and medical supplies. The Velthani had never done anything like this before. They were not a species used to fighting against nature. But they learned fast. Amy spent her days running calculations with Eric. The 4 asteroids they needed to deflect were all on slightly different trajectories. Each one required a unique approach angle and thrust duration. The timing had to be perfect. If they pushed too early or too late, the asteroids would still hit populated areas. If they pushed at the wrong angle, they might send an asteroid into an even worse trajectory. This is like threading a needle while running through an earthquake, Eric muttered one night, staring at his screens. Can you do it? Amy asked. Eric was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. I can do it. In the medical bay, Dr. Samantha Green prepared for the worst. She trained Velthani doctors in human medical techniques. She learned their biology so she could treat them if needed. She set up emergency stations throughout the ship. When we hit those asteroids, she told her staff, people are going to get hurt. Maybe badly. We need to be ready for anything. Her team worked without complaint. They checked supplies and ran drills and practiced emergency procedures until they could do them in their sleep. Lisa moved between all of them, coordinating and encouraging and solving problems. She barely slept. She ate when someone put food in front of her. She kept going through sheer willpower. On the 5th day, she found herself alone on the observation deck. The Velthani homeworld hung below, beautiful and fragile. The asteroids were visible now, a cluster of dark shapes against the stars. They looked small from here, but she knew how massive they really were. How deadly. A voice behind her made her turn. It was High Chancellor Varys. You should rest, he said gently. You look exhausted. I will rest when this is over, Lisa replied. Varys stood beside her and looked out at the view. I have been speaking with your crew. They tell me remarkable things about humans. About your history, your wars, your struggles. He paused. They also tell me about your kindness, your music, your art. We are complicated, Lisa admitted. All intelligent species are complicated. But you are complicated in a unique way. Varys turned to face her. The Corellians are powerful but cautious. The Dreth are intelligent but cold. The Imari are wealthy but selfish. Each species has its strengths and weaknesses. And humans? Varys smiled, a strange expression on his alien face. Humans are stubborn. Impossibly, wonderfully stubborn. You refuse to accept what is logical. You fight against odds that would make any sensible being surrender. He put a thin hand on her shoulder. That stubbornness may save my people. Lisa felt tears pricking her eyes. She blinked them away. I hope so, she said quietly. I really hope so. On the 7th day, the modifications were complete. The Endeavor looked different now. The elegant warship had been transformed into something brutal and functional. Metal plates covered the forward hull like armor. New thruster ports had been welded onto the sides. The whole ship had an improvised, desperate look. Kevin surveyed his work with tired pride. She's not pretty anymore, but she will get the job done. Are you sure the engines can handle this? Lisa asked. No, Kevin admitted. I'm not sure of anything. But I've done everything possible to give us the best chance. That was all anyone could do. On the 8th day, Lisa gathered the crew in the main hangar. 842 people stood before her, tired and scared but determined. She looked at their faces and felt a surge of love for every one of them. In 24 hours, we will attempt something that has never been done before, she said. Her voice carried through the hangar, amplified by hidden speakers. We will ram our ship into asteroids and push them off course. It will be violent. It will be dangerous. Some of us may not survive. She paused and let the words sink in. When we left Earth, we knew this might happen. We accepted it. But I want you to know that I have never been prouder to serve with anyone. You are the best of humanity. The best of everything we can be. Someone in the crowd shouted, For Earth. Others picked up the cry. For Earth. For the Velthani. For everyone. Lisa smiled. Tomorrow we make history. Get some rest. You are going to need it. The crew dispersed, but many stayed to talk and pray and simply be together. Lisa saw friendships forming between people who had barely spoken before. She saw fear being replaced by purpose. That night, she called her family on Earth. The communication took several minutes because of the distance. But eventually, her husband's face appeared on the screen. Her daughter was beside him, already in her pajamas. Mom! The girl shouted. Are you okay? We saw the news. Everyone is talking about you. Lisa felt her heart break and heal at the same time. I am okay, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear your voice. Are you coming home soon? Lisa looked at her daughter's hopeful face. She could not lie to her. I do not know, she said honestly. But I want you to know that I love you. More than anything in the universe. Her husband understood. She could see it in his eyes. He knew what she was not saying. We love you too, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion. Do what you need to do. We will be here, always. Tell her stories about me, Lisa whispered. Tell her about the stars and the people we saved. Tell her that her mother tried to do the right thing. I will. I promise. The connection ended, and Lisa sat alone in the darkness for a long time. The next morning, the Endeavour rose from orbit for the last time. The ship climbed toward the first asteroid, designated Alpha. It was the largest of the four they needed to deflect. If they could move Alpha, they could move anything. Contact in 15 minutes, Eric announced from navigation. Lisa sat in the command chair. Around her, the bridge crew manned their stations. Everyone was focused. Everyone was ready. All hands, prepare for impact, Lisa said into the communicator. This is what we trained for. This is why we are. Trust your crewmates. Trust yourselves. We can do this. The asteroid grew larger on the view screen. It was enormous, a mountain of rock tumbling through space. The surface was covered with craters and ridges. It looked ancient and indifferent and deadly. Contact in 5 minutes, Eric said. All systems ready, Kevin reported. Engines at maximum standby. Amy checked her screens. Trajectory calculations confirmed. We need to maintain thrust for 43 seconds after impact. Understood. Lisa gripped her armrests. Take us in, Eric. The ship surged forward. The asteroid filled the view screen, blotting out the stars. They were going to hit a mountain at full speed. Every instinct screamed to turn away, but they did not turn away. The impact was violent beyond description. The ship shook so hard that Lisa was nearly thrown from her chair. Metal screamed. Alarms blared. Sparks flew across the bridge. Engines firing. Kevin shouted that the Endeavour pushed against the asteroid with everything she had. The modified engines roared, pouring out thrust that would have moved a small moon. The hull groaned under the stress. Trajectory changing, Eric reported, his voice strained. 10%. 20%. We need more time. Hold together, Lisa whispered to her ship. Hold together. 30 seconds. The ship bucked and shuddered. Warning lights flashed everywhere. We are losing hull integrity on Deck 7, someone shouted. Seal it off and keep pushing, Lisa ordered. 40 seconds. The engine screamed. The asteroid's trajectory shifted more and more. 43 seconds. Disengage, Lisa commanded. The ship pulled away from the asteroid, leaving deep gouges in the rock where the reinforced hull had dug in. They floated free, battered but alive. Trajectory confirmed, Amy announced, her voice shaking with relief. Alpha will miss the northern continent by 200 kilometers. First target clear. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Lisa was already looking ahead. How long until the second asteroid? 4 hours, Eric said. 4 hours, Lisa repeated. Damage report and repair crews now. We do this 3 more times. 3 more asteroids. 3 more impacts. 3 more chances to die. But they had done it once. They could do it again, and they did. The 4th asteroid was the hardest dock by then. The Endeavour was barely holding together. 3 impacts had torn holes in the hull. Half the systems were running on backup power. 17 crew members were in the medical bay with serious injuries. The engines were overheating. pushed far beyond their limits, but they kept going. The final asteroid, designated Delta, was on a direct course for the Velthani capital. If it hit, 300 million people would die in an instant. The city would be vaporized. The center of Velthani civilization would be gone forever. "Contact in 10 minutes, Eric said. His voice was hoarse from exhaustion. He had not slept in 2 days. Kevin looked at his engineering readouts and shook his head. The engines are at critical temperature. If we push them any harder, they might explode. Will they last 40 seconds? Lisa asked. Kevin was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Maybe. Probably. I do not know. That is good enough. Amy ran her calculations one more time. We need to hit at a slightly different angle than the others. The asteroid's spin is working against us. If we miss our window, there will not be time for a second attempt. We will not miss, Eric said firmly. Lisa looked around the bridge. Her crew was exhausted. They were bruised and battered and running on nothing but determination. But no one complained. No one asked to stop. They had come too far to give up now. All hands, Lisa said into the communicator. This is the final push. I know you are tired. I know you are scared. But think about why we are here. 300 million people are counting on us. 300 million lives that only we can save. She paused and took a deep breath. When I was a little girl, my grandfather told me a story about a man who saw a beach covered with stranded starfish. Thousands of them, dying in the sun. The man started throwing them back into the ocean, one by one. Someone asked him why he bothered. He could not save them all. It was hopeless. Lisa smiled, remembering her grandfather's voice. The man picked up another starfish and threw it into the sea. Then he said, I saved that one, and he kept going. She looked at the asteroid on the view screen. At the mountain of death they were about to face. We cannot save everyone. We cannot stop every disaster. But we can save these people. We can give them a future. And that matters. That is worth everything. The bridge was silent. Then Kevin laughed, a tired but genuine sound. That is a good story, Commander. My grandfather was a wise man. Contact in 2 minutes, Eric announced. Lisa straightened in her chair. Take us in. The ship surged toward the asteroid. The rock filled the view screen, blotting out everything else. They were flying into a wall of stone. Impact. The collision was worse than the others. The ship's weakened hull buckled in places. A section of Deck 9 collapsed. In the medical bay, Dr. Green grabbed a table to keep from falling as everything shook violently. Engines firing, Kevin reported. His voice was tight with strain. Temperature critical. We have 30 seconds before they fail. Make them last 40, Lisa ordered. The ship pushed against the asteroid with its dying strength. The engine screamed in protest. Warning alarms blared from every direction. 10 seconds. Trajectory shift at 12%, Amy called out. We need more. 20 seconds. 28%. Still not enough. Lisa gripped her armrest so hard her knuckles turned white. 30 seconds. Engine 2 is failing, Kevin shouted. I cannot hold it. Hold it anyway. 35 seconds. 41%. Almost there. The ship groaned like a wounded animal. Something deep in the hull gave way with a terrible crash. 40 seconds. Trajectory clear, Amy screamed. Delta will miss the capital. Disengage now. Disengage. Lisa commanded. The engines cut out. The ship drifted away from the asteroid, leaving a trail of debris behind her. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the cheering started. It began on the bridge and spread through the ship. 842 voices raised in triumph. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had done it. Lisa slumped back in her chair. She was shaking, Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "Damage report," she said weakly. Kevin looked at his console. "The engines are gone. We have no faster-than-light capability. Life support is on backup. We have about a week of power left." He paused. "We are not going anywhere." "Then let us go to the Velthani homeworld," Lisa said. "We might as well enjoy the view." The Endeavour limped into orbit around the planet, using the last of her maneuvering thrusters. Below them, the Velthani watched through telescopes as the crippled human ship took its place in the sky. Over the next 3 days, the 8 remaining asteroids hit the planet. The impacts were devastating. Tsunamis swept across the oceans. Earthquakes shook the continents. Dust clouds rose into the atmosphere, beginning a long winter that would last for years. But the shelters held. The preparations saved millions. And the 4 asteroids that would have destroyed civilization missed their targets completely. The Velizani survived. The Endeavour made its final descent on the 7th day after the impacts. There was no graceful landing. The ship was too damaged for that. Instead, they crash-landed on a wide plain far from any city, plowing a long furrow in the earth before finally coming to rest. Lisa was the last to leave the ship. She stood in the airlock and looked back at the vessel that had carried them across the stars. The Endeavour would never fly again. Her hull was cracked, her engines dead, her systems failing one by one. But she had done her job. "Thank you," Lisa whispered. Then she stepped out onto alien soil. High Chancellor Varys was waiting with a delegation of Velthani leaders. The sky above them was dark with dust, but there was light on the horizon. There was hope. Varys walked toward Lisa and bowed deeply. "You saved us," he said simply. "You gave us our future." Lisa looked at her crew, standing in groups around the crashed ship. 842 humans, stranded on an alien world far from home. They had given everything, and they had received nothing in return except the knowledge that they had done something good. "It was worth it," Lisa said. The news spread across the galaxy. The Corellians sent formal messages of disbelief. They demanded to know how humans had survived the Morrow Expanse. They analyzed every piece of data they could find, searching for an explanation. The Dreth Collective revised their probability models 17 times. No matter how they ran the numbers, the mission should have failed. The humans had defied mathematics itself. The Imari Consortium suddenly became very interested in establishing trade relations with Earth. They sent diplomats with offers of wealth and technology, but it was the Velthani who changed most of all. In the months after the impacts, something shifted in their society. They had always been a peaceful people, content to accept what fate gave them. Now they began to fight back against their circumstances. They rebuilt faster than anyone expected. They developed new technologies. They looked at challenges and refused to surrender. They called it the human way. High Chancellor Varys addressed the Galactic Council 6 months after the disaster. "We have learned something important," he said, his words carrying to 100 worlds. "We have learned that when the mathematics say hope is lost, there are beings who will answer anyway. Not because the odds are in their favor, not because they expect reward, but simply because it is right." He paused, and his voice grew strong. "The humans call themselves Deathworlders. They come from a planet that tries to kill them every day. But I have lived among them now. I have seen what they truly are." His golden eyes shone with emotion. "They are the ones who answer when no one else will. They are the light that refuses to go out." On the Velthani homeworld, in a settlement built from the wreckage of 2 civilizations, Commander Lisa Morgan stood watching human and Velthani children playing together. The dust clouds were beginning to clear. Green shoots were pushing up through the scarred earth. Daniel walked up beside her, carrying 2 cups of something the Velthani called morning tea. "Message from Earth," he said, handing her a cup. "The relief fleet arrived yesterday. Supplies, engineers, colonists. They are calling us heroes back home." Lisa sipped her tea and watched the children laughing. "We are not heroes," she said quietly. "We are just people who showed up." Daniel smiled. "Sometimes that is all it takes." They stood together in comfortable silence. Above them, the stars were beginning to appear through the clearing sky. Somewhere out there, other species were looking at humanity in a new way. They were asking questions, making plans, reconsidering everything they thought they knew. Because now the galaxy understood something important. When the call goes out, when hope is lost, when everyone else has looked at the numbers and walked away, there is one species that will answer. Every single time. Lisa looked up at those distant stars and smiled. "Worth it," she said again, and it was the end.